Friday, the final day of the week. These are the voyages of the program Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Its ongoing mission: to explore strange new movies, to seek out new bits and new edifications, to boldly go where no radio program has gone before. Oh, Kent's Movie Club. It's El Kent's Movie Club. El Kent's Movie Club. It's El Kent's Movie Club.
Font. It's nice
I
font.
was playing around last night during that boring ass football game.
I like the new font.
1920s
It
art
is,
deco.
Yeah, it is.
They downloaded some new fonts into the program, and I just started playing around. So
Very nice. I noticed that as well. I went, have I missed this or what?
Well, I'm happy, Kent, that you thought the same thing, because halfway through I was like, I think that's a little bit different.
Me too.
Yeah.
John was just subtly trying to gaslight us.
I
Nice.
wasn't gaslighting anybody.
Gaslighter.
I can't wait to see
Okay,
what
hold
John.
on. You're in
Nick
enough
said.
trouble with what you said last
For
segment.
the record, slavery was bad.
Oh,
so was
wow.
racism.
You-
bad.
You never want
Kent,
to
do
have
not
to put
ask.
out a statement that says,
Yes.
for the record,
Yes.
slavery was bad.
Yes. Kent, we're talking about, again, another awkward transition. But it's
Mr. H.
the movie Valkyrie, late 2000s,
Oh, wait.
08, starring Tom Cruise. It is about the plot of some of the members of the German military and German civilians to assassinate Adolf Hitler. This would have been in the latter stages of the war. This was probably the most famous attempt. There were several attempts, but this one was certainly
It's like 15, right?
the most famous.
Yeah, it ends with I told this to John Kent when we were chatting earlier. When they had that graphic at the end of the movie, I didn't realize that there had been that many attempts, because I don't really recall learning about this in school.
I don't know that it was heavily promoted in schools, but if you have studied much about World War II, you'll start to find out that there were over 30 attempts that we know of.
Wow.
To try to kill him.
Wow.
So this was, and this one was kind of the last and most famous of them, I think, because it was the one that came the closest to actually getting the job done. And it also, and this isn't covered in the movie, and when you read about it, it says, he only had minor wounds afterwards. It punctured his eardrums.
Yes.
And it really messed him up, and he was already in some kind of mental decline. Who knows what it was? And he also probably had Parkinson's, and all of this just accelerated that. And remember that this was July 1944.
Yeah.
This is a month after D-Day, and so the Allies are already gaining a beachhead and moving towards Berlin.
And so are the Russians. And so he's a year from being dead.
Yeah,
and this
less than a
really
year.
accelerated that process. So
yeah, if you look back at some of the later films, especially as the war is nearing its end, how the way he's holding his hand, the shaking, and he is very much a different person. And this assassination attempt kind of, push that process even more forward.
And not to just skip ahead to the very end of the movie, or I guess when does the bomb happen? 40 minutes to go, maybe an hour and 20 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, there's still quite a bit of movie left.
So Kent, when that happens, one of the people moved the briefcase that the bomb was in. So if it would have been a different way, would it have taken him out?
Correct. That is this movie is pretty historically accurate, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not 100% because it's a movie, but that part of that briefcase being moved, whether it was done by that specific officer or not, is what happened. And by moving it, it blew up the table more than it blew him up. And otherwise, he'd have been dead. It killed I believe, 4 people total, and then everybody else that was in the room was wounded. But 4 were killed, including the guy that they have moving the briefcase.
Okay.
Well, and the other key thing about it was the original meeting was going to be in the bunker, which is where the first meeting was, which is,
More
a
enclosed.
bunker is more enclosed and sealed up. And so the blast really stays contained. This particular meeting got moved outside, not outside, but into a more open room and an open building. Thus, the blast had more space. If the meeting would have taken place in the original location, then it would have worked. It would have probably killed everybody in the meeting.
Yeah.
But instead, because it was not in the bunker complex, if you will, that's one of the reasons why it didn't work. But of course, a lot of this too, Kent, and it gives you just. This is one of those, and I was thinking about this around the time the bomb goes off in the film. You're talking about a World War II movie, and outside of the opening scene, which basically shows Cruise's character, Colonel von Stauffenberg, in Africa. This is the rare World War II movie where there's no fighting per se.
Mm-hmm.
And you go from that scene
It moves fast
to the
man.
very end, you hardly see any guns.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
This is more of like a political thriller.
Yeah.
A better term when
No question.
to the plotting. But yeah, so that in terms of a World War II movie, this is not the type of thing where you see a lot of battle scenes. There are no really, except for
It's not really a war movie at all. In the sense, I mean, the war is the background, but it's not a movie about the war. It's a movie about this internal. I mean, let's put it this way. This is not. It's the same movie, but there was a comedic movie made about the death of
Stalin. Did we watch that movie?
I think you guys have watched.
Yeah, I think that was the early movie club days. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great movie.
So it's that kind of movie that it's about this one thing that happened within a turbulent government, right? That just happens to be set
government
in World War II, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the evil of Hitler, or in the other one you had the evil of Stalin. But all of that, the other thing that this movie manages to do is still kind of work as a thriller, even though you know what the outcome is going to be.
Correct.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Kent.
Yeah, this is not Inglourious Bastards where basically you get to rewrite your own history.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
This is historically accurate.
Yeah, they in fact used. Apparently, the whole thing was very, 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 very well documented by the SS, Gestapo, whatever. Nazi police agency it was, and they were able to use their records in putting together the screenplay.
Kent, what do you think of? And I don't think John has mentioned this, that the movie is essentially in English the entire time, right? Mm-hmm. Like Tom Cruise, of course, an American, many Americans, many British actors in this movie. And I was thinking about it earlier, Kent. I don't know if anyone in this room has ever watched the miniseries Chernobyl. Yes. That aired on HBO 5 years ago this year, actually. And that movie it's similar in that that movie is full of English actors. And so it's a movie about the Chernobyl disaster, but it is filled, of course, with people who are speaking English. And I think that it's like that pretty much the entire time. I remember as it first started, Cruise's character is speaking in German.
Correct.
And so I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't realize he was going to speak German in this movie. That is some, really good acting. Now, obviously, he doesn't do that. And at first, I think I'm like, oh, this is weird. But then you get lost in the story. I wonder what you thought of that decision.
I actually thought that the way, when he changes to speaking English, because he's writing in that diary, right? And he's speaking German part of the way through, and then he starts speaking English. And I thought that was a beautiful way to do that, because 3 reasons. If you hire German actors to speak in English, I don't quite get what the point of that would be.
Correct.
Sure.
Necessarily. If you do it in German, nobody's going to go see it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Sorry to say, subtitled movies do not play well here. There occasionally you'll get a hit, one that's halfway a hit, but not very often. And Tom Cruise ain't going to make no German movie because I doubt he could speak German for an entire movie, nor could these actors, right?
Yeah.
And so they hired a bunch of really good British actors to go along with Cruise, essentially. And they put them in roles where they could use what they bring to the screen to begin with in establishing these characters, which really weren't deeply established, right? You don't get any backstory on any of them, including Cruise, other than being in North Africa when he was a colonel. You don't get the background on Fromm or on the guy who Bill Nighy played, kind of wishy-washy guy. Tom Wilkerson, you put in a role of a kind of a bad guy because he comes off like a really good guy. So it sets that kind of thing up. And all of those things, I think, were very smart moves on the part of the production, which was kind of a troubled production. And then I think the thing that really sort of sews it all up is that this is a Bryan Singer directed it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he made The Usual Suspects. He also has made a lot of the X-Men stuff since then, but he really managed to take all these things, and I don't know exactly how you put it. He slimmed it. This is a very it covers a lot of ground, but it's very direct and narrow, right? It's very propulsive, straightforward kind of thing. And made it work as a thriller. And I think all of those elements had to come in for it to work, including the language change.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. Well, if you remember back, it's basically they use the same tactic that the producers did in Red October. Remember? Because Sean Connery begins starting in Russian, and then they kind of zoom in on Sean Connery's mouth. I think it was Connery's character, or it may have been the other one. But anyway, and then all of a sudden he starts talking English, and then the camera zooms back out. So it's just kind of a way to acknowledge, hey, we know these are Russians, but for the purposes of the movie, we're going to
speak English.
Imagine everything they're saying is in German.
Yeah, and the same thing is being done here with this particular film. The film actually came about because the producer, Christopher McQuarrie, was researching another project and was in Germany and visited the memorial, the memorial to these plotters and to von Stauffenberg in Berlin. And that's kind of where the genesis of, this might make an interesting movie. And it started from there. They actually did shoot, because the memorial's in the same courtyard where von Stauffenberg and all of these officers were assassinated or were shot at the end as being conspirators in the plot. And the Germans were not going to allow the movie to be shot here because Tom Cruise was Scientologist. And the Germans were very suspicious of that and were like, well, we're not going to allow this to happen. And so they had to work through a lot of things to get this still done in Germany because of the suspicions they held about Tom Cruise, which was kind of interesting.
And the thing to remember there is that this was it's not just because Tom Cruise starred in the picture. This movie was made by United Artists, which was a studio that he was one of the owners of. If he's not listed as a producer, he was a de facto producer of this. So it wasn't just that he was starring in this movie that was going to be shot in Germany. It was all of those things that, I don't know, added up. The interesting thing, you mentioned Dennis McQuarrie, and I was going to mention this. He wrote this movie, and this was his first team up with Tom Cruise. He has gone on to write and direct the last three Mission Impossible
movies.
He did Edge of
Tomorrow. What a great movie.
So he and Cruise, this is what started that relationship between those two guys.
I thought one of my favorite parts is honestly, it's after the assassination attempt and the next like 20 to 30 minutes. As I thought it was a great decision to not show us the room after the explosion, because we all know, of course, that Hitler lives, but how they just leave that kind of, off to the side. And so
Right.
you have all these people that are, some of them are like, this is what happened. When Cruise's character gets stopped at the barrier and he goes in and he knows the phones are down, but he pretends to be on the phone. He's like, you really want to do this? And like the moment when the typewriters, when all that is happening and all these people are suddenly raising their hand, I just thought it did a really good job of showing what those minutes, hours, however long this lasted before he talks to Goebbels. And it's like, holy crap. I thought that was a really great decision to just like, let's not show the aftermath in the room. Let's show the aftermath everywhere else.
Right. Because that was, it was all about the plotting and then how they were going to execute the Valkyrie plan.
Yeah.
And so it really wasn't necessary. Yes, there is an actor who actually, plays Hitler. You do see him in a couple of scenes, but that's it. It's not really about him. It's about the plotters and how they were going to try to execute this whole thing, because there was the plan. Valkyrie was the plan that was designed for many years during the Reich of what happens in the event of the death of the Fuhrer, and how basically, I guess it'd be the Nazi National Guard was going to seize control to make sure that there was a proper, I'm using air quotes, transfer of power.
Yeah.
And if you happen to want to see what the real room looked like, just Google July 1944 assassination attempt, Hitler assassination attempt, and the picture of the room comes right up. So that's no state secret. The one thing on the second half of the movie that helped what you're talking about is not only the fact that they went immediately to the following the conspirators rather than what the aftermath with Hitler is, a change in technique that's really subtle but really works. It's all handheld after the assassination.
Oh, like a documentary almost.
Like a documentary. It's more intense. It's a little less almost stable in a way. And so after that assassination attempt, if you go back and watch it again, it goes from the steady cams and this, the long, more tradition into straight handheld for the last, I think it switched about 40 minutes left.
Okay.
I looked when I watched, and I think it was right. Isn't it right at a 2-hour movie? I think.
Yes.
And I think it was an hour and 20 minutes when it switched.
Just to add to the drama and the fast moving pieces.
It's in a sense, you saw how that worked with the Blair Witch the other ago, right? That handheld camera added to that sensibility of Blair Witch. Well, this one does the same thing, not the same visually, but the same idea of making it a little more intense and unstable in a way.
Kent, Severe is listening, and normally he has a very particular question about movies. He does not ask that one this week. He does ask, is it true that there were at least 3 folks impersonating Hitler?
In reality?
Yeah, in real life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Yes. There is. Okay. You got to really want to do this, but there is a spectacularly.
Oh, you told me about this before.
Biography. It's a 2-volume thing. I can't remember the author's name, but he's from Germany, and it's like 1,000 pages total. And it is, if you're remotely interested, it's unbelievably good.
The one by Volker Ulrich.
That's it.
One? Yeah. So there's one. It's called Ascent, 1889 to 1939. And then the other one is called Downfall, 1939 to 1945. We did a movie at some point. We did a World War II movie, and Kent and I were texting about that. And each of them are like 1,000 pages. So get ready.
Okay.
Get ready to dive in deep.
By the way, did you recognize the actress who played von Stauffenberg's wife.
She looked so familiar.
That is Carice Van Houten, who played the Red Witch in Game of Thrones.
Oh,
That's why she looked so familiar.
Yes.
Oh, well.
Okay.
speaking
Maybe
of
you didn't
Michael-
recognize it
speaking
because she wasn't walking around naked.
There you go. Speaking of Michael's question,
But I was
circles back.
Yes, Michael, she does, just not here.
not in
different-
this movie,
yeah.
but I was watching. I'm like, this woman looks very familiar.
And that's who it was.
And so when I looked up the cast members, I was like, aha. Now, of course, as the Red Witch, she's got red hair.
Red hair,
in
yes,
this.
indeed.
But
Well,
but
except
she
the end,
actually,
it's old.
I believe she was actually nominated for a European Movie Award or something as part of her role in this, I think.
Oh, this thing was very well received, and it didn't get any Oscar nominations. or anything,
No.
but it was pretty well received in Europe, so I would believe that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm looking here. Yes. Best Supporting Actress. This was in the Academy of Science Fiction.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, science fiction, fantasy, and horror films. Which
How
is
the-
interesting. I would not have I guess.
How this fits in there, I
I
guess.
have no idea.
Sometimes the Globes do weird crap where it's like, this movie, why is it a comedy? You know,
Mhm.
I mean, The Bear has been nominated for Emmys for comedy.
It's almost like calling a
comedy.
music band that sounds more like Huey Lewis metal.
Do you have any specific people you're thinking about there,
No,
John?
nothing at all.
Not at all.
But this was good. I enjoyed it.
I really did too. Again, Kent, it's stuff that I didn't really know a whole lot about. You know, obviously I've known that there were assassination attempts. I didn't realize that it, you know, like one of them got this close to happening. Yeah, I thought it was good. Really interesting too. And it makes me, as always, every time I watch a World War II movie, then I'm like, I want to do more deep dives into World War II. You know, it's always very
There
fascinating.
are some documentaries out there about
Yeah.
it as well. So you can, if you cast around, you can find that. And yes, and I would like to thank John. Are you responsible for this?
Yes.
John.
So now I know the next time I turn on Prime, my recommendations are all going to be freaking World War II movies.
We did have that stretch last year.
We did.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Uh-huh.
We just kept
Sorry,
picking
Ken.
World War II movies.
And I think it's Kent, it's a movie that I have wanted to watch for years. I think it's close to 3 hours, so I've just never got around to it. And John told me last week he's watched it, but Downfall, the one that had all the memes about Hitler, you know, from almost 20 years ago now.
And that is in German.
And I think that one is on Amazon. One of these days I'm going to watch it.
And that one's also in German.
Yes. And I'm good. I'm fine with subtitles.
English.
Yeah. Yeah. Sprechen Sie Deutsch? Yeah, I'm good with little subtitles. Yeah.